So section 3.4 is about all types of equations. By looking at an equation, you need to be able to know how to solve it. And this very first problem that we have 4 terms. It is a polynomial, so we need to figure out what in the world are we supposed to do with this to solve it for x. Well, we could try to factor it. Remember, when you have 4 terms, it's better if you try to solve factor by grouping. Well, how does that work? Look in the first 2 terms and find the greatest common factor. That would be x squared. So factor out an x squared, then you'll be left with x plus 3. In the last 2 terms, we also have x plus 3. So we can just factor a 1 out of that. Now if you notice these two, they both have x plus 3 in them. So factor out the x plus 3. And if you factor out the x plus 3 from both of these, you're left with x squared plus 1. Now set each factor equal to 0. X plus 3 equals 0. And x squared plus 1 equals 0. And solve. This one will give you x equals negative 3. Okay, and over here we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So we get x squared equals negative 1. Now to solve this, you need to take the square root of both sides. So we square root, and don't forget you need plus or minus. So we get x is equal to plus or minus. The square root of 1 is actually I. So don't forget about that one as well. So we have x equals negative 3 and x equals positive and negative I. You can check this as well. You just check it by substituting each of your answers back into the original equation, and it should make it true. Okay, so let's try number 2. This time we only have 3 terms, so we can't factor by grouping, but I do see a greatest common factor. We can factor out an x for sure, and also a 2. I don't think we could factor anything else out, so let's factor out a 2 and an x. That would leave us with 15x squared plus 8x minus 12 equals 0. Now we need to see if this inside here will factor. So we're going to use the AC method, and we'll multiply 15 times 12. 15 times 12 would give us 180. We need to find factors of 180. Actually, that's going to be a negative 180. That will add up to give us our middle term, which is a positive 8. So how about 8 and 10? I mean 18 and 10. 18 times 10 is 180, and if we want to add them to get a positive 8, then the 10 needs to be negative. So we're going to factor this using the AC method. 15x squared plus, we're going to split the 8x into these two. So plus 18x minus 10x minus 12 equals 0. Now we can factor by grouping. Don't forget we have this little guy stuck out here. We'll come back and get him in a minute. So factor these two. We can factor 3x out. That'll leave us with 5x plus 6. And the last two we could factor out a negative 2. And that would leave us with 5x plus 6. Then if you look at these two, we can factor out the 5x plus 6, and we're left with the 3x minus 2. And don't forget we had this 2x sitting up here, so bring it out front as well. Now we set each one of those equal to 0. We'll have 2x equals 0, 5x plus 6 equals 0, and 3x minus 2 equals 0. Now if you solve each of these, I'm running out of room, so we would get x equals 0. If we move the 6 over, we have a negative 6, and divide by 5, that means x would be a negative 6/5. And move the 2 over, that's a 2, and divide by 3, so that's 2/3. X would be equal to a positive 2/3. So here are your three solutions: 0, negative 6/5, and a positive 2/3. So I did pause the video and check this to make sure it works, and it does. So all of those answers will work. So how about number 3? For number 3, we again have 4 terms. So let's see if we can factor this by grouping. We can group together the first 2, group together the last 2. In the first 2, we could factor out an x squared. We'll be left with x minus 2. In the last 2, we could factor out a 5. We'll be left with x minus 2. Now we could factor out the x minus 2 from both of these. And if we do, we're left with x squared plus 5. Set both of those equal to 0. Move the 2 over, so x equals 2. And this one we're going to move the 5 over, so we get x squared equals negative 5. Now we need to take the square root of both sides. When we do, don't forget plus or minus. So we'll have x squared is equal to plus or minus. Because it's the square root of a negative, we have I, and since we don't know the square root of 5, we just leave it that way. It's not x squared, by the way, it's just x. So x is equal to plus or minus I square root of 5. So let me pause and check that one as well. So those do work as well. So how about number 4? 4 is a little bit different. I think we should go ahead and set it equal to 0. So we're going to subtract that 16x squared from both sides. We get 2x to the 5th minus 16x squared is equal to 0. Now factor out your greatest common factor. You can factor out a 2x squared. If we factor that out, we are left with x cubed minus 8 equals 0. Looks right. So when we set both of these equal to 0, we'll have 2x squared equals 0, and then we'll have x cubed minus 8 equals 0. This one you divide by 2, so x squared is equal to 0. Take the square root of both sides, and you get x is equal to 0. This is one solution. On this side, remember how you can factor difference of cubes? You're going to have your x minus 2, then you're going to have your x squared. Over here you're going to have your 4, in the middle you have 2x. Since this one is minus, this one is plus, and this one is always plus, so now you set both of those equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0, and x squared plus 2x plus 4 equals 0. So this one is equal to x equals 2. This one won't factor, so we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. So let's see what happens. We'll come over here. X is equal to negative b, so negative of a negative 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac and that's all over 2a. Let me just double check that. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So we're going to get 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 16 all over 2. That's going to be 2 plus or minus the square root of 20 all over 2. So if we break down the square root of 20, 2 plus or minus 20 is going to be 2 square roots of 5, and that's all over 2. Remember, you can factor a 2 out of the numerator, so you end up with something like, that's ridiculous, 2 times 1 plus or minus the square root of 5, and that's all over 2. And that means your 2's can be reduced, so you get 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. Those are your other two solutions. So for this particular problem, 2x to the 5th equals 16x squared, you get 4 solutions. You get 0, 2, and 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. This will factor into u minus 2